Hello，大家好，欢迎回到乐学成长空间，我是乐学。那么今天我们再一次回到了这个老板面对面的系列。那么这个系列如果是第一次观赏，这个系列顾名思义，也就是我会邀请马来西亚的一些老板、一些公司的创始人上来跟我们分享他的故事，到底他们是如何从零到一。那么今天这位嘉宾可以说是非常特别，因为他其实是第二次来参加了我的这个频道，也是第一次的时候应该也是大概1年前吧，也是参加这个老板面对面，只不过当时候我们主要是谈从一个投资的角度，有什么值得我们关注的事项。但是今天我们将会来了解这个老板的故事。那么其实这家公司也就是 QES Group 哈。那么今天我有幸邀请到了他的这个Managing Director 兼 President Mr. Chu 上来跟我们分享他的故事，到底他是如何把一间公司打造成一个目前价值5亿市值的公司。那么当然今天我们这个视频也将会以这个英文方式来采访。Hello Mr. Chu, welcome back to the channel.
Yeah, morning.
How about we take some time to kind of like briefly go through what QES is all about?
We are now, of course, it's a listed company in the main board of Bursa. QES is really, we are very specialized in the, manufacturing and also distribution of equipments relating to, inspection, analytical, metrology, measuring. We also do a lot of services to those equipment that we have already installed in the marketplace. So we have been around for slightly more than 30 years and infrastructure across ASEAN. And of course, now we are starting to, build some infrastructure in China as well recently.
When I was preparing this interview, I learned that you actually graduated from Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. So I'm just wondering, kind of like going back to time, back then, what makes you decided to further study at Singapore, or is actually just an opportunity that come across back then?
Okay, I think I need to rack my head a little bit now. It's been quite a while. Let me see. I actually studied in Malaysia, did my STPM back in Alostar, and at our time, I think we need a good Bahasa Malaysia credit to get into the local universities, and I was the one that did not do well in Bahasa, and I subsequently applied to join Singapore University, and I was fortunate because they accepted me, and because I was quite active in sports, probably helped me to get into the Singapore University. Now they have a scheme like Singapore University. They have a practical engineers will be kind of farm out to Nanyang, whereas the research-based kind of engineers will be staying put at the National University of Singapore. So I was the practical engineering side. So on the second year onwards, I went over to NTI at the time. Now it's called NTU. So in a nutshell, I think the Singapore government at the time gave a lot of opportunities for Malaysian students like myself, and because the country needs a lot of engineers. So we were kind of given this opportunity to study, and it was heavily subsidized as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's true.
That is good. 2 years later, you got an opportunity to come back to Malaysia to set up a company. So is it a hard decision for you back then, like when you are working in Singapore and then got this opportunity to come back to Malaysia? Was it like a hard decision, or is just like, this is something that I would do it for sure?
It's strange, and life is like I wasn't really planning that I want to come back to Malaysia and work. It was just that the company that I work with, they have decided to expand to Malaysia, and since I'm a Malaysian, so the my superior at the time said, okay, Chu, why don't you help us to build the Malaysian market? So I took up the challenge, so and started building the business in Malaysia. And I think within a short span of time, I think I built the company from a one-man show to when I left, it was about 25 people, So that's what I did. And so it wasn't a plan that I want to come back to Malaysia. It was like opportunities in terms of career, in terms of experience. So that kind of shoved me in a way. It's like I wouldn't say like I planned it that I want to come back to Malaysia. So it wasn't that kind of a decision making. It's more like I went with the flow of career building and working and trying to build the business for the company that I work for.
Do you think that this experience actually helped you to kind of like shape how you run a company, or actually give you what kind of experience do you think that you gained from setting up a company from zero?
Yeah, I think it does help. A lot of exposure because I built the company from scratch for this Singaporean-based company, so that gave me a lot of exposure and experience as well, hiring people and managing people. So that is opportunity, so I was exposed to this at a very young age. And I work and I realized that in Malaysia has got a lot of opportunity at that time. Many Japanese companies starting up to invest, and industrialization of Malaysia was pretty fast moving at the time. So I realized that, there's some opportunities here, and decided to form QES with a couple of guys, a 5-person organization at the time when I first started out. Then, today QES is 465 people around there.
Wow.
So,
it comes a long way. When you were like young, or even like in university, do you even foresee yourself to become an entrepreneur, or it's just like you say, you just go with the flow?
Yeah, that's a good question, Loshe. I think a lot of people ask me this question, but really, I don't have any intention to become a business person or entrepreneur at that time. I'm just working. Whatever the company gave me the opportunity, I will just work work hard. I give 100% of my effort and time for whoever that hires me. So I'm that kind of person, just be professional and work as hard as you can. And of course, when opportunity knocks, then you tend to evaluate what are the options on the table. Should I do it on my own now? Am I ready? So all these things, I think those are logical or a little bit of risk taking. And true enough, I was young at that time. I started QES when I was 28 years old.
Wow.
So in one way or another, the risk taking is minimal. I lose nothing if I fail. So that in one way or another, it helps me to make a quick decision rather easy at the time, because you really have nothing to lose.
Got it. You're right. When you're young, you have less obligation. You are more you are willing to take more risks. Compared to later in life. When you first started QS, like you say, it's a 5-man show. Is it the same business as today, or QS actually ran through a huge transformation, or just like an evolution per se?
I think we started as distributing of high-tech equipment, covering this area. But I was, in a strange way, because I was working out from Singapore, right? So I knew that I have to have a ASEAN infrastructure, even way back then, I'm talking about back in 1992, So it's like I need to have, instead of just Malaysia, I need to have Singapore and Thailand as well. Really, the time I planned for ASEAN-based kind of distributors of high-tech equipments. So that's where I started. So from there, then we start to build a customer base and build the trust from the customers, and eventually that leads to us looking at manufacturing. So it's like a phase of progressiveness as we go along, and eventually in a way customers lead us, meaning that hey, why don't you guys make this locally? I find it, this equipment, the support from US or Europe or Japan is very longish, very long time for them to come. So if you can make it localized, this equipment, we will support you. So that kind of opportunities were given to us, and that's how we built the manufacturing from year 2000 onwards, I think. So that was where we are.
I saw that back in 2000, you guys entering like semiconductor test and assembly line, and then we know that now definitely semiconductor is definitely like a very hot topic. So it sounds like, is it because that the customer drove you guys into this sector, or actually you have a vision back then that seeing that, okay, semiconductor will be the next boom?
Yeah, fair enough. I think I have had ideas because I work for a Singapore-based company, right? So, and I knew Singapore government were very aggressive trying to attract semiconductor into Singapore. So I had this preview, or so-called information upfront when I was in Singapore. And actually, I was trying to convince my Singapore boss at the time to go into semiconductor equipment business. And he wasn't keen because he's a traditionalist guy, just wanted to stay put with his own boundary. And one of the reasons I started QES was because I think semiconductor give us a better and wider opportunity, because I see it coming through, because I see the investment coming in. Those days, chartered semiconductors in Singapore was really doing and spending a lot of business, a lot of expansion plans. And then, of course, Malaysia has got test and assembly, so that makes sense. So to me, I think that drives me to increase the product offerings within the semiconductor environment. And eventually we went to manufacturing that is really focused on semiconductor equipment as well. So in a way, it's like we knew, I personally knew that semiconductors was going to be a big business around this region as well at that time. Yeah.
What do you think is like the next big thing, like semiconductor back then 20 years ago, if you have anything in mind?
I think, eventually, from what I've gone through the past 3 to 5 years at least, I think semiconductor is going to be evolved into a lot of stuff, and whatever expansion plans that QES has today, I've made it in a way that is going to be against the backdrop of the proliferation of semiconductor. Recently you look at NVIDIA, the generative AI business is going to grow. So there's going to be a huge demand for this type of IC chips. I'm really encouraging more investment in this area. So to me, you can see it. I think next 10 years will still be a growth. Albeit maybe ups and downs are still going to be there, because
there's a cycle.
Your geopolitical tension and trade sanctions, all this happens, so we can't avoid it, and that will bring certain things down and then eventually bring certain things back up. So we're going to ride along, put it that way. But on the backdrop of it, it's going to be growth in a very staggered manner for semiconductor IC chips. That's just my opinion.
When you're building something, definitely you face hardship. And then since like QS has established more than 30 years, I'm just wondering, is there any like memorable like hardship or like difficulties that you face that you feel like sharing with us?
As far as I remember, 3 major economic crises. 1997, I'm very clear, there was a Thai baht crisis. And of course, the US dollar shot up very, very high. And 1998, Malaysia fixed the currency and all that. So impacted QES as well. So we were having hard times trying to even offer quotation to clients during the time. So we were impacted, but we managed to overcome and went through that. And the second that impacted QES was the .com burst. If you remember, year 2000, everybody was trying to gear up, because there's going to be a Y2K issues, so business were booming, but after that Y2K, seems like nothing happens, So the 2001, 2002, then there was a big crash, all the semiconductor companies all crashed, and we were also impacted as well. And the last crisis I remember was just how many years ago? It was 2008, 2009, the Lehman Brothers collapse. So that was significant. That was huge, because QES has grown in size by that time. So we have a presence in China. I got lots of operations in China as well, even those days, because we went to China very early. The crisis, the Lehman Brothers collapse, affected us quite heavy. I have to shut down factories. I have to sell some of the offices to pare down the debt and all that. So that was the biggest crisis that we have went through.